Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today's episode is not just an audio podcast. It can also be watched over at YouTube at celestial_fit. And we are speaking with FitBody Fusion coach. And she started weight training and living a healthy lifestyle back in middle school and found working out and living this lifestyle to be exactly what she needs. And so she pursued competing in 2012 when she did her first show in July in the Natural Federation as a figure competitor, then went on to coach herself and learn more about the process, decided she wanted to pursue this further. So she hired Jamie DeBernard. You guys, we've had Jamie on the podcasting coaches series, so check that out if you haven't. She hired her back in 2013 and started her run in the NPC. Shortly after that, she switched from figure to bikini and ended up gaining some momentum, went on to compete in her first national show where she actually received last callouts after a few first places in regional shows. And after a couple of years off, she took time to manage her hormones and reverse diet, and she came back in 2017. Then after her return, she decided to take more time off and start her family with her husband in 2020. So 15 months later, she got back on stage, actually competing in wellness and bikini, got feedback and did really well in wellness, thought she'd push for that. Then she found out she was pregnant again. And she came back in 2022, only a few months after her son's birth. And in March 2023, she began her prep, jumped into junior nationals after getting great feedback from Sandy to just go for it. She won her pro card, and now she is here with us. So welcome to the show, Angela Rutherford. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. And I'm just so happy to be here and, to finally be doing this with you.
I know. I feel like we've been chatting forever about like when your moment comes and how awesome that'll be. So I'm so happy that you did it and you're here. And I was just sharing you guys with Angela how happy I am that we're doing this, because I feel like she's such a great representation of that this sport can take time, and getting where you want can take time. So we're going to talk a lot about that journey and so many other reasons why I see her as such a great example. But before we get into that, I got to ask if there is anything you do or think about or a ritual you have right before your heel gets on stage.
Because it's been like so many, like pretty good, big gaps, like in between my, show season. So prior to just this last one, nothing really comes to mind. I'm usually just like in my zone, but I would say like these last two shows that I did this year, definitely in my zone, like staying focused, but I just felt really good. Like I had a lot of good energy, like within myself and just around me. And I just kept kept that going. Like I didn't let any kind of doubts creep in, and I just kept things really positive and feeling really good. And I had all my like good jujus around me.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it. Just keep the good vibes rolling. Not letting anything kind of cloud, and keep the sunshine going.
Yeah, I love that. And that sunshine can be felt, I think, when you step on stage, that positive energy versus any like doubt or fear.
Absolutely. Yeah, it felt really good to just be back in it and to be doing it and just all the things.
Yeah. So did you expect to come back so quickly after your second child?
Well, actually, I was planning on doing a show last October. So the same year that he was born, and I had started prepping for that, but we didn't end up following through with it just because I, at the time, wasn't feeling confident enough, with my goals. I could get on stage, sure, but like I wanted to get on stage and make that impact, make that impression, and like turn pro. So I didn't feel like I had that last year because just I lost a lot of muscle, so and I was still breastfeeding
Oh, wow.
when we decided to pull me out of prep. And honestly, like that was the best decision because it gave me more time to build. Like I kept building for, another 7 or 8 months with my food relatively high for me, and the outcome couldn't have been better going into it this year. So yeah, it was hard.
Yeah.
Prepping with two
Yeah.
little, but definitely worth every bit of it.
Well, let's talk about motherhood and prep, and we'll get back to some of your initial start and everything. But being a mom, being in prep, I posted on my story for questions, and actually Hannah wanted me to ask you this, and it's something that I really had wanted to ask you too, which is how do you set boundaries and prioritize your schedule so that you can achieve what you want as a mom?
Yeah, this is a good one. Because I'm big on boundaries, and juggling just coaching and my goals and being a mother and being a wife and staying present in all of those definitely has its challenges, but setting boundaries is like the key component to all of that. So like, number one, like I always do my best to like put my needs first, even above my kids. So that comes down to like my workout,
Mm.
getting that done. I wake up early, I get that done. And granted, my kids are early risers. And if you're watching my stories and my workouts, they're pretty much a part of my lift session for the most part. So, number one, making sure I'm getting that out of the way. And then, in terms of like setting boundaries, like with my work and my clients and everything, like I tell them like, these are my working hours. This is when I'm going to be, able to respond to you. And if it's outside of that, expect a response, in 24 hours. Or if it's the weekend, like I tell them, I don't get on my computer or on my app over the weekend. Like that's my family time. Like I need that boundary. Otherwise I would be working 24/7, every day. And I can't do that anymore. Before I had kids, sure, it was fine. But, I don't want them to see me just strapped to my phone or my computer all the time. So I'm upfront with all my clients. I tell them that, and, if my working hours change, I let them know, but then just sticking to it, that was hard in the beginning.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've had that boundary with myself probably over 2 years now. So it's there.
Yeah, it's a strong boundary. So how do you manage show days for clients knowing that you take weekends off?
So that is an exception.
Okay.
I will have that as an exception. Like if I have athletes competing, I'm going to be, it's not every weekend. I mean, I have a lot of athletes competing, but they're not every weekend. So, like this weekend, I do have a couple competing, one at the Chicago Pro and then one, at Masters Nationals. So
That's
I
awesome.
will be working a little bit on that day, but other than that, it's just sticking to that boundary. But
That's really, really cool. I feel like it can be hard though if you started without taking much time off to then suddenly be like, I mean, obviously you made it clear that in your heart that's what you wanted for yourself to not work on weekends, but I still imagine that transition to no longer go on your computer, go on your phone would have been kind of tough.
it's hard not to just go on there and check, like, what if, there's, something I need to respond to, but at the same time, like I tell them, if there is a time sensitive question, if there is an emergency, if your macros are messed up for whatever reason, or you are in a pinch with something, just text me, I'll respond. But if it's something that can wait, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
I'm not gonna respond to it till, Monday or the next day if it's after hours, because my kids are pretty much gone during the day. My parents help out a ton, and my husband's dad helps out a ton as far as like keeping them occupied while I'm working. So they tend to come home around 3:30. So I do my best to get everything finished by then. That way I'm not having to, work while they're here, just because I want to spend time with them,
Yeah, that's so awesome. So during the day, like, is your normal schedule? You wake up early, obviously you get your workout done, they're there. And then are you working most of the day after that until about 3:30?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I usually drop them off or they get picked up around 8:30. And then after that, I'm pretty much working and then, making my meal prep and my food and working, and that's about it.
Definitely. Well, you know what? That's actually, you bring up a good point with the food aspect. So I've worked with a lot of moms who struggle with taking like bites, licks, and tastes of everything that they make for their kiddos. So is this something you've struggled with, or maybe clients have struggled with, and how do you personally navigate that?
I feel like I'm struggling with that more now that I'm not in prep. And when
Yeah.
I'm prepping, I feel like I can be laser focused and, not have any bites of anything and just, keep that discipline. If I have a bite of something, it's probably going to be like extra zucchini or carrots.
Yeah.
Like that while I'm in prep. So I would say out of prep is probably the biggest struggle with that. But and this is something I actually struggled a lot with this last week because I recently got my cycle back and my cravings were like through the roof. Like I'm not super hungry, but just wanting just crap. And so I was having a few handfuls of cereal and, little bites of things here and there that my kids eat. And, I was honest with Jamie and I told her that, and she's like, well, those add up. So stop it. And, sometimes I just need that,
Yeah.
so going into this week, I really just tell myself, like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just eat what I have planned. And if I want a little something extra, I have 500 calories to use it. I'm going to utilize it for that and not, I don't want to sabotage my reverse and, all the work of building these good habits and mostly not picking up that bad habit, because I feel like that carries so far when you're prepping, and it just makes it that much harder. And I know I'm going to be picking up prep here again, probably not relatively soon, but for next year. So that's not that far away.
Yeah. And it's so easy to pick up a unhelpful habit, and
Yes.
it's hard to break them because we kind of start telling ourselves this story that it's beneficial in some way, even if it's just from our brain telling us because it feels good, or it maybe relieves some sort of feeling, or gives us this false sense of another feeling. So I think it's awesome that you identified it, you addressed it, you talked to your coach about it, and she obviously knows how to work with you. You guys have been working together for almost a decade, right? So I think it's like very clear she knows how to coach you. And I also think that you bring up a great point. Like for other moms listening, it's not about like you're not a failure just because you did it for a week. You can start and pick back up, new week, new goal, keeping that intention. And I think that's important too. And you mentioned you have 500 calories, and talk to us about like what your nutrition expectations are in improvement season or when reversing versus when you're in like more of a deficit or a prep.
Incorporating balance right now, because I feel like it's, though, like I live this lifestyle year round, like when you're prepping, there is no balance. You are prepping and that is it. So incorporating like more meals out, things like that with my family, like I'd say it's been a little abundant lately, like just way more than like I would prefer or like. And but that's where like having that 500 calories in addition to my macros, like I really, really love, because it gives me the opportunity to find that balance and to work that balance in. And just, if we go out and I want a little indulge a little bit, I have the room to do that. That 500 calories would tip me close to like 2,200 calories for a day if I did it in one day, which is for me plenty.
Yeah.
Plenty. But I tend to want to spread that out a little bit in general. Like it might be over like Saturday, Sunday, over the weekend where we aren't as regimented and, kind of just out and about and doing things. And that's usually when we eat out. Or if we're not eating out, I'll tend to spread it out like over maybe like 4 or 5 days instead. That way I'm just taking in a little bit more calories throughout the week. So I've only had that for maybe 3 or 4 weeks now. So it's still kind of new. At least this time around. I've done it in the past, but it's really just kind of going how I feel, like more intuitive eating along with tracking my macros.
I think that's super smart to have that flexibility, because us competitors are so like type A in many regards, or maybe you could say really conscientious. We tend to be very focused and organized and we want to execute. And so sometimes like when you have, like if your coach gives you, let's say 2,200 calories a day to eat, and then you end up going over 100 calories a day because you feel restricted, versus if you're told you have 2,000 calories every day, you have a 500 calorie addition you can have throughout the week, that kind of gives you more of a data point to hit or look for. And I think sometimes that it's not necessarily you're controlling for a variable, yes, but it's also a feeling of like, okay, it's actually fine if I have this, and it's not coming from a justification of a negative habit. It's coming from an understanding of like, this is an allowance and I can spend it how I want to. Therefore, I have to take personal responsibility for how I spend it.
Yes, exactly. And I'm so regimented and so detail oriented when it comes to what I'm eating throughout the years. So I personally feel like I need this
Mm-hmm.
to kind of break away from staying on my macros and just, having that, that perspective that it's going to be okay if I'm over or, a certain amount, and it's going to be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's also a reason you've been able to do this for so long. And as a mom now and someone who's been competing while being a mother, turning pro after becoming a mom, I think it's awesome how you are incorporating your kids into your workouts like you show in your stories. And I was curious like how that actually supports you and maybe like your efforts or your drive or your focus.
Yeah. I'm going to do it anyways.
Yeah.
Whether they're there or not. I feel like it's actually helped me stay more focused in my training than not, because they are a distraction, and it can easily turn into a big distraction.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like at the end of the day, like I win my workout, I get it done. And, there might be an occasion like where I'm not able to complete it, which happened more often than not when they were, babies. But, now that they're kind of just in there bouncing around with me, like they enjoy it just as much as me. Like it's my daughter, she knows I'm in the garage when she wakes up, she comes right out there. And my son can usually sleep in until I'm done. Like he sleeps in a little bit, but he'll kind of join like towards the tail end. But it just makes me want to focus more on what I'm doing and having a stronger mind muscle connection. But at the back of my mind, I'm like, what are they doing?
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine.
What
I
are they
love
getting
watching it, but I'm like, oh my gosh, he's right there. And it's like they just know it's almost like your kids seem to understand like the boundary line of like what mom's doing and how to stay out of like a danger zone.
Yeah, I mean, I do my best to teach them. Like Wyatt, he's kind of obsessed with the cables, the little cable machine that I have. So like anytime I'm messing with that, he wants to like grab it and poke it. But he's learning. He's starting to be more occupied with
That's cool.
getting into other things that he shouldn't be getting into. But
Yeah.
I mean, they've been a part of my workout since, I mean, they were really little. Like I would have them strapped to my chest and I would be working out, or, they'd be sitting in their little bouncy seat or doing their floor play, and, they're with me. So they from day one, it's been a part of their routine.
That's awesome. I actually think about this a lot, like with moms who compete and that transition from competing to motherhood and competing. And when you had found out you were pregnant and then you gave birth, you're there, you have your first baby, you're also wanting to train and do your meals and live this lifestyle you're used to living. What did you notice maybe shift for you internally or emotionally or mentally to make that adjustment to doing all of that with a kid now and now kids?
Yeah. I mean, I'll say I had a lot of help with Ember because we were still living at my parents' house. We moved out of Wilton, moved in there, saved some money to purchase the house that we're in now. So I had a lot of help and with her. So anytime she was not cooperating, like I would just, "Your dad, you want to watch her?" And of course he's going to say yes, so I mean, that was a big help. But oh, I totally lost my train of thought.
That's okay. Adjusting into like having both lifestyles, was that hard emotionally or mentally?
Got it. I would say no. I'd say it was pretty seamless as far as because I do it every day. I don't feel like being pregnant and having babies like changed that part of me. Like it it added more value to what I was doing, I feel like, and it made it more important for me to get this done even more, because if my needs aren't met, then I'm not able to meet their needs to the best ability that I can, from like every aspect, because training just helps me feel so much better, like from a mental standpoint, in addition to that physical standpoint. So I feel like it's just kind of been a seamless, I'm going to make it happen no matter what.
Totally. I
Whether
feel like
it's
that's
a 15-minute workout or, an hour long.
That's super cool. Like that's such a great example of like you created an identity and it didn't change just because something in your life changed. If anything, it just continued in a new way, took on a new form. And it's like when people express to me that they're worried about gaining all the weight back or they're worried about becoming who they used to be, for example, and I'm sure you hear this all the time as a coach, like from the mental side for me, it's like there's no real proof that they would backtrack, just like what you're saying here. There was never proof or evidence that would say, yeah, Angela's not going to be able to follow her training or do her nutrition. It was just like, it's who you are. So it's in your nature to complete it. And I thought it was really interesting. Earlier, you said you lost a lot of muscle after your time off with kids. So can you kind of explain that to us and then how you had to approach your, I don't like calling it a comeback, but your comeback to the stage?
Yeah, yeah. So my pregnancy with Wyatt was very different from Ember. Like I was able to train with Ember the entire time and be
Wow.
as active like as I wanted to be. Like I felt like I didn't have any limitations, where with Wyatt I did. Like I don't know if you know what round ligament pain is, but it was intense.
Oh,
Or but basically like as everything is stretching, like you have your ligaments and they just get tighter and tighter and tighter, like, and they can only stretch so much. So certain movements, like when I was exercising, they would light up like from just a body weight squat, so that really put a limitation on, doing anything other than walking, because it would even hurt just walking sometimes. So towards like the end of my pregnancy with him, I wasn't doing a whole lot other than maybe some band work and body weight work a couple 2 to 3 days a week. So compared to my regular resistance regimen and, still being able to push myself, and I wasn't able to do any of that. And then that was probably for at least a good 2 months before he was born. And then, you're waiting another, 6 to 8 weeks before you can really push your training again. So just kind of that rest is really what my body needed, though, to kind of form what it was needing to form, because I've always been really leg dominant. And that's kind of why we were focusing on, pushing towards wellness, just because they were developed and that's what we had been doing before. And, so we kind of just kept that ball rolling. And then just as the division, evolves, I'm talking to Jamie and I'm like, I feel like I have so far to go to get to where I need to be competitive, not just getting on stage, but, with my goal in mind. And, I want to make an impression. I want to make an impact, and I want to turn pro, so I told her that, and she was like, are you thinking we should go back to bikini? I'm like, yeah, I think that's probably the better choice. So we revamped my training and pretty much took out all of like the quad heavy compound movements out, like completely. And even hamstring work, I wasn't doing a whole lot of hamstring. It was really just focused on glutes and, building my upper body back up, because that was really relaxed with training for wellness, because we wanted to get that lower body dominance and just kind of keep my upper body where it was. And it was really, really enjoyable training, since we made that shift, because I felt like I could train everything again,
yeah.
and really push myself. And that was kind of lacking for a long time, with my prior seasons. Like I was always overly muscular and, still really quad dominant. And so I never really trained legs. I was barely training upper body, back my prior season back in like 2017, so it's just really cool, like how the sport's evolved and just how timing is everything. And, now I'm enjoying every bit of it.
That's so cool. It's almost like the pregnancy leading to some atrophy benefited you and ultimately finding right where you would fit in. Whereas in the past, too muscular, but then in the present, not muscular enough for wellness. So it was like, okay, maybe back to bikini. And you said you guys made an adjustment to your training. So I imagine, taking away the leg day, well, the more compound movements and the strict quads and hamstring movements, you're mainly focusing on glutes. And something that, and I actually spoke with Jamie about this when I met her, or we've met before, but when I saw her at Cuties Conquering the Stage, we were talking about my legs because they were like out there. She's like, girl, be careful. And I was like, oh, I know. It's like I was like, at first I'm like, it's just fat. But she's like, you crazy. So yeah. So something I had adjusted in this improvement season, like after the initial couple weeks post show, it was like I was doing compound movements. We were just capitalizing on like as much muscle growth as possible with my coach. And then we stopped. And we've been doing like 3 to 4 upper body days a week and like 1 lower body, mainly glute focused. And it's weird because I'm like, I'm still not big enough in my glutes for bikini, but because I'm imbalanced, I have to have the upper body catch up.
Yep.
And so it seems like for you, you needed to have your lower body atrophy, your upper body rebuild, and then you got to push yourself. But did any part of you have doubt because you had performed so well in wellness when you initially did it that you were making the right move, or were you fully confident, like, yeah, I should do bikini?
I was fully confident. Like, those girls are muscular. Like they're tiny for compared to like the other divisions, but they have a lot of muscle. And I just felt like that was like where I wanted to be in my off season too, like, because that's where I'm going to be spending the majority of my time, and I wanted to be comfortable year round. And I feel like staying with bikini was going to be, I was going to accomplish that.
That's cool. Oh, that's super awesome. So you ended up coming back after both children. You came back to the stage. So let's go through your first season back and then how that compared to your most recent season. Like walk us through the differences and maybe anything that surprised you.
I mean, I was still probably training as much after Ember. And I really took my time, like getting to a place where I wanted to compete. Like I didn't even think about it until, she was a year old, and I was just kind of enjoying my postpartum and working out and working on myself. And, I had my goals in the back of my mind still, or, front of my mind, but, my main focus was just enjoying this first year of being a mother and, experiencing that. And I have no regrets of that. But come January, February, when she turned 1, I was like, okay, it's game on, let's go. So I would say in terms of training, like my training was relatively the same. I was training, legs probably 3 days a week, all in my backyard. Cause this was like when COVID was happening, so there was no gyms in California
Yeah.
that were open. I wasn't gonna do like the whole mask thing at the gym anyways. And
Yeah.
so I started just building my home gym and, getting my leg press. I was like, okay, if I'm doing wellness, I need to have a leg press. I need to have a squat rack. I need to have a hack squat. So I got that, and I just felt like I could really do this, at home. And it was grind time. I mean, when we started prepping and cardio started building up, that would probably be the biggest shift, aside from like my training and my foods, because I generally eat the same, but my cardio got up to 90 minutes for that prep. And that was probably the hardest.
Yeah.
Doing 3-hour plus workouts a day, combined with a 1-year-old was not easy. And I probably wouldn't have been able to do that had I not been living at my parents' house because they helped out a lot.
That's super cool. So they're really supportive of your bodybuilding journey as well, it
Okay.
sounds like.
Yeah, totally. They love it. They love that I do it.
That's so cool. I think it's really special to have that support system. And obviously, you were able to come back. You did amazing, especially into this season, too. Like, you came back, you won an overall, and your original plan was to compete at Universe, I believe, but you were told, just hop into Junior Nat. So when you got that feedback from Sandy, what made you like decide or maybe go fully confident, like this is probably the show I'll go pro, if you felt that way at all?
I never put expectations of that going into, any show. Like it's interesting because like before turning pro, I had set like a goal. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, it's not going to be the end of the world, but I wanted to get an overall. Like I'd never gotten an overall for as long as I'd been competing. I'm like, dang it, I deserve that. I
Yes.
worked hard, I deserve it. No. And so accomplishing that and then just getting the feedback that I got from Sandy, which was literally like, I felt like I had to pull teeth to get something out of her. Like, what can I do better? It was like, literally, she's like, I have nothing for you, Ange. Like this is the best you've looked. And, don't change anything, So, but really like I came in a little bit tighter. And that was all like I could get out of her. She's like, maybe just a smidge tighter, just a teeny tiny bit. So we did that. And then just, coming off of an overall and then just accomplishing like bringing my best. Like I've never had tie-ins like I had for either one of these shows. So just going into it, knowing like I look the best I have ever looked, with the bikini criteria going into these shows. And that's all I can do, like that's all I can control is like what I can do. And, I just stayed focused on that and not, necessarily worrying about who else shows up and all of that, because that's not anything I can control. So timing is everything.
Yeah, and you've been in this for a long time. Was a decade of work plus, because you've got your history as well. Which, did you do sports prior to this? No.
I just weight trained, and I mean, I rode horses. I competed in dressage and hunter jumper growing up.
Wow.
But that was kind of put to a halt when I was probably around 18, just because my horse, she came up like lame, and she needed to retire, and I just didn't pursue it after that. That's when I got into weightlifting even more. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So let's go back to your first time on a national stage. You had a really great season going into that, many first places, not the overall yet, like this most recent, but you ended up in last callouts. You've referenced it as an eye-opening experience. So what did you learn from that you then applied into maybe the athlete you are now?
Yeah. So for that season and that show, just to give you a little backstory, like I was a group exercise instructor on top of my personal training clients at the time. And I was teaching probably about 5 high intensity classes. And I was the type of person to do the class with them. And I was sweating, I was out of breath, so it was a workout. And then I had my workouts on top of that. And then I had my cardio on top of that. So on top of, eating fish and asparagus for months on end,
Yeah.
That's what I had to do to get lean for that show. And by the time I was there, like my body was so inflamed. It was just, my hormones were just like, what hormones?
Yeah.
So it was just, I mean, I would say that because I feel like a lot of competitors feel like they need to do that. They need to push more and do more and eat less. And at the end of the day, to a degree, but that's only going to just destroy your body even more. And then coming out of that, the recovery process out of that took a couple years, so I would say like that was the biggest eye-opening. And, when you go through that, you don't ever want to do that again, so you just want to cherish your vessel and, treat it like the goddess it is and take care of it. And, I do my best to preach that to all my athletes, who want to rush into a show and compete in 15 weeks. And I'm like, you're probably not going to be ready because I'm not going to do that to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
That's
did
so
a lot of
smart.
wrong things, I did a lot of wrong things. And at the time, like, we just didn't know, and, that's what bodybuilding was.
It was fish
It
in a
was.
circus. Yeah.
So, and it's just evolved, and we've learned so much, like, over the years, and I've learned so much about myself, and, I want to carry that through.
Definitely. I wish I could go back and tell like my first prep self, like it doesn't have to be like this. But then again, I know it's like how I'm sure you feel like it's part of the journey, it's part of the learning. Like you had on some level, as you said, timing's everything. So you had to go through that to get here. And is there anything else, like knowing what you know now? Because there's probably people who haven't competed or maybe who are, but they don't feel like it's as healthy or as great as it should be, or they think they should feel better. Like, is there anything else you wish you would have known before getting into competing that might help someone in that situation?
Make sure you're eating enough. Number one, like, make sure you're eating enough, because I wasn't, like, I self-coached myself and I was eating normal, but I have no idea like where my baseline of calories of maintenance was. Like, I have no clue. So I just hopped on a diet, which was about keto. It was pretty much keto with a carb cycle every 3 days, which was like half of a sweet potato. And that was it. So that's the diet I put myself on for my first show. And then coming out of that, like, I had no idea, like, I knew to like gradually add things in, but to what degree, I don't know. I wasn't keeping track, so I would say just making sure you have an abundance of calories before you start dieting. You don't want to be, at 1600 calories and have 20 pounds to go before you get, the conditioning that you need. Like, if you're prepping and you have a few pounds, sure, but you don't want to be starting your prep at 1600 calories or less.
Yes. Well, I know in your past you had a history of disordered eating for a lot of your teen years. So, and much of that stemmed from misinformation, which I can absolutely relate to. Scrolling on Pinterest and learning things, reading
So
things, being like,
fat, don't eat that. Like, it's
oh,
bad.
exactly. Like, and then the whole like you have to burn more than you eat. Like, I took that literally. Like, I actually would just work out and force myself to move after anything I ate. Like, if I ate a snack, I was doing a 20-minute HIIT workout from YouTube. If I was eating like a full meal, it was like a full workout. And I got so small. And at the time I was celebrating it because I'm like, my stomach's flat, but like then it just turned into the bodybuilding diet, the bro diet, and that turned into like a lot of restriction. And it just kind of spiraled from there for me. So how did your history with that actually maybe challenge or support you in coaching yourself, as well as then like transitioning to the more competitive athlete you are now?
Yeah. Well, when I decided to compete, I felt like I was at a really good place. Like, I had not restricted myself for years. I hadn't done any, purging for years. And I just felt like I was in a really good spot, like, mentally. Like, I did a lot of work, a lot of self-education, like, on nutrition. And I dove into that to like help me just learn how I should be eating and learn how I should be taking care of my body to fuel it for every day, but also for performance and working out. So I didn't want to lose that. And, after my first season, there were moments where I did binge and I did purge, and I did feel like I needed to self-restrict again. And I felt like major anxiety of all of the things that I did not want to return. And, you know, that's also when flexible dieting was also introduced to me, so it was a good blend to kind of have a goal of something to target, and not necessarily worry so much about eating 100% clean, but as long as I'm hitting these numbers, I'm going to be okay. And in my mind, like, that worked.
Yeah.
So I just kept going with that. And, I did not want to go back to that. And, after that year, I never did. It was a constant, like, you want to protect those things that you just feel like could destroy you, and because when I was in the thick of like my eating disorder, like if I was not able to see my hip bones and my ribs, like it was not going to be a good day. So it was bad. I got down to like 90 pounds, as
Wow.
a 16-year-old, so I was little.
Yeah. How tall are you?
I'm 5'1".
Oh man, that's really little.
Yeah.
That's tiny, tiny Angela.
Teeny tiny match,
You really rebuilt yourself and mentally and physically.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just like, it stemmed from just misinformation, and I admired bodybuilders like from a young age. And, with the information that I had and the influence that I had, it was just like, eat less, eat less, eat less, do more cardio, eat less, until I'm like eating carrots for my meal, and that was it for the day, so it's, people got to find a good influence. And, if they have any doubts in their mind about it, it's probably not a good fit for them, so they got to find somebody to help them with the process so that they don't create those, harmful habits along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's so important and finding the path that works for you and what's going to be sustainable. And I think sometimes like body image comes into play too, like not just the fact that most women struggle with their body image in their life at least once, which is unfortunate, but most of us struggle with it for a very long time and consistently are in different phases. So earlier you referred to your body as a goddess, as a vessel, and I love that. So how did you develop that mentality, and is that somewhat of what you like to do or support your clients with? Since you did say you try to remind them of that, I'm just kind of curious how that mentality has evolved for you and maybe in your coaching.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I came from a place that was very destructive internally. Like I was not surrounded by that by any means, but just within myself, like not a very kind person. And, I got tired of doing that one day. And I started just reframing those thoughts, with something positive. And, I would be doing my cardio wanting to quit, and I'd be like, keep going, you're a badass, you're almost done, like
Yes.
being that cheerleader for myself. And, I've just continued to do that. And, the more you do that, the more you appreciate who and what you are. And, but also, I mean, as a person prior to kids, I was doing that, but I feel like even more so now, like I don't want them to feel like that ever, and I want to make sure I tell them every day, like I tell my daughter every day, like how pretty she is and how smart she is, how, how much I love her, and my son, but it's instilling that into them from a young age. Like it's important to me, and I have to be that example. And I feel like that's what my body is. It's this goddess and it's this vessel, and you got to take care of it because you only get one. And just being through the lows that I've been through as a teenager and as like a young adult with my hormonal imbalance issues, and when you go through that and you overcome it, you want to cherish it and just protect it and honor that. And that's kind of just where I'm at. I want to protect it forever.
What was your experience like with the hormonal imbalances that made it like something you really don't want to ever experience again?
I had no control over my body, zero control. I would look at food and gain weight.
Yeah.
And just not having that control, like just, I mean, you got to eat, and that's kind of where my mentality was. Like, I have to eat. I have to just let my body do what it's going to do. It's going to recover. I had to trust that. And I had to trust Jamie. I had to trust my coach because she had gone through similar things like after her, competing. And um, having that as like, having her as like a mentor and a guide while I was going through that was beyond helpful, because I knew if, she's coached other people to come out of it herself, and I knew I would be one of those people, so I just had to not care about the scale, not care about gaining body fat for the first time ever in my life, which was probably the hardest because I had the most body fat on me that I've ever had, and just, I really just focused on training, getting stronger, and enjoying that over anything else. Like, I ate foods that I wanted, ate foods that I enjoyed. And even though sometimes it was pretty restrictive, like there was a period of time where I went almost a year without eating any grains, no
Wow.
grains, because I just could not digest them. My body was just not going to do it, so
Yeah.
lots of inflammation from certain foods. And I didn't do any like, um, any kind of allergy testing or anything like that. I just went off of my biofeedback and how things improved when I took certain foods out and added certain things in. And then just sticking with it. You got to you got to truck through the mud, and just giving myself time to do it, and we kind of knew like when my body was starting to shift and kind of responding a lot better to things, like, okay, this might be the time where we, give prepping a try. I remember we had done keto for a little while, mostly for like, this was when keto was like the next thing, it was like up and coming, everybody was doing it, and I'm like, I kind of want to try it, because I started learning more about like how it could help your hormones kind of reset. And I feel like I totally experienced that, like once we did that, because I pretty much ate veggies, a ton of fat, and some protein,
Yeah.
lots of things that my body needed. I didn't do the keto stuff that was processed or anything. I stuck to just whole foods, and that's really what did it, sticking to the whole foods. So after that, we came out of keto, and I wasn't gaining any weight, like as we were introducing carbs again. And I was like, this is glorious. I
Wow.
can have oatmeal again. Yes. And
That
bananas.
is awesome.
Yeah. So just paying attention to how my body was responding. We got to where we are now.
Did you ever have any gut health issues?
I probably did. I was never diagnosed. Um, I mean, I had chronic constipation, like really bad. Like if I wasn't taking, um, certain things, I wasn't going to the bathroom, like my
Yeah.
smoothie and things like that. Um, so, I mean, I probably did. And that was another sign, like how I knew like things were good, because I wasn't taking anything at a certain point, and my bowel movements were normal and healthy, and, how they should be every single day, so that was kind of like another light bulb aha moment, when things were really shifting, is not being dependent on something to make me go to the bathroom.
Yeah, seriously. I asked that because like I was struggling with gut health issues and I had to go on like a very high fat, like almost no carb diet of like literally what you described, meat, the fats and the vegetables. And my vegetables were limited, like low FODMAP. And then the reason for that was because every time I was eating carbs, I was gaining so much weight and I couldn't keep like I had no appetite. Like I would eat it and then one week I was like, I'm eating mindfully and I'm just gonna track what I eat. I'm gonna hit my protein goals for sure. Everything else I'm just gonna eat mindfully. And I came back to my coach and I was like, I know I didn't tell you I was doing this, but I needed to do it for myself. And this is what I got. He's like, oh, I think we've got like a gut issue because,
Yeah.
and it wasn't just like, you dropped weight because you didn't eat carbs for a day or 2 days. It was like a decent amount of data. And so it was like, I never knew I was struggling with like gut issues. I mean, there were signs, but you get used to something for so long, just like I'm sure you were used to like living on a certain level that you didn't realize how good you felt until, or how bad you felt until you started to feel good. So what did you start to notice other than your body responding, like what, and the bowel movements being better? Like what else did you notice shift that made you go like, oh my gosh, I never want to take this for granted?
Um, well, I would say the biggest shift was not until probably about 2018, after that season. And then trying to come back and do a national show after that was when I had hit kind of like rock bottom hormonally. So I'd gone through like a huge stressor in my life. And up until that point, like my body was very happy for the most part. Like I felt relatively good.
Mhm.
But when I started working with Joanna and Hormone Logics, that was where things like really changed. Like going in to see her, like I had brain fog. I was sleeping 10 plus hours and exhausted. Um, you know, very slow progress with the reverse diet and everything. And, obviously some of that was stress. Like I can only do so much with stress, but just all the things started adding up. And that's kind of where I was at. And, getting my lab work done and, finally having a physician that would pay attention to how I was feeling and not just what the lab work was saying, is huge, because they put me on a thyroid medication. They put me on a testosterone cream and gave me some supplements to, help other things a little bit more naturally. And that was like a night and day difference. I can't even like a night and day difference. Like I didn't know how crappy I was feeling until I started feeling good. And I'd say the biggest was just the energy and the drive. Like I stayed disciplined because that's what I do, but I guarantee based on how I was feeling, most people would not be getting up to go to the gym to do any of that.
Definitely. Was it mainly energy, or was there also like mood fluctuations as well?
I don't feel like there was any mood fluctuations. I feel like I'm a pretty like I coast really easy and hide like a lot of the negative stress and stuff. I build it up internally. I don't let
So
anybody.
healthy.
I know. But I mean, doing that, like exercise is my outlet. Like that is my outlet. And so like I hung on to that, and that's how I would deal with my stress. And that's what I did, getting through that. But it was energy mostly, and just the brain fog. Like I never felt like I would wake up. Like I would just be kind of just going through the motions,
Mm,
I wasn't full of life.
yeah. So you felt like it could have been better, and then you realize like now it is better, so you don't want to ever go back to when it felt like you weren't really fully there.
Exactly. Now I do labs every year, sometimes every 6 months, just to make sure. I very rarely use my insurance. I always, pay out of pocket because I need thorough. I want to make sure things are staying optimal. And, if they're starting to kind of trend in the, out of the range or low ranges where they were, we correct it before it even gets there.
Yeah, so smart.
And it makes such a difference.
Absolutely. And I'm sure like all these personal experiences you've had has influenced the work that you do. And I know you offer consultations and you do a lot of work with clients, both competitors and lifestyle clients. So we'll give people that information, how they can contact you for that. But I'm curious about how all these personal experiences have actually influenced you as a coach, because I know from talking with Jamie and other FitBody Fusion coaches on this podcast that it's about health and it's about really finding a way to support the needs of the client. So how have you personally maybe incorporated your personal journey, if at all, into the coaching that you do?
Oh, it's every day. It's every day. I would say the biggest factor is, making sure everything is optimally working, and not just kind of treading the line and within ranges. And especially if we're seeing slow progress, just over the years. I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years now, as far as coaching. So I know like, and I've worked with many people like out, including myself, like I know when things should be, smooth sailing and we're doing good and the body's healthy and thriving. And I know when there could be a little bit of work that needs to be done, and, whether that's just changing what they're eating, revamping their diet. And I don't believe in like taking things away. I just believe in adding things in, having more of the nutrients that they're lacking can make, a huge difference. But, making sure you're giving yourself time, giving your body time to adjust to those things, and, to be working and thriving if it isn't, because how long has it been functioning? Not, it's going to take some time to correct that. It's not going to be a 3-month thing. It might be a 6-month, it might be a year-long thing before we really start seeing progress. And I feel like that's the hardest for people. And having like my longevity behind me of getting through that, and just, if you keep going, you're going to get there. If you stop, what are you going to do? You're going to go find another coach that's going to start from the bottom and do the exact same thing if they're good.
Yeah.
So it's, if you keep going, you're going to get through it. And I feel like that's just the hardest part, because so many people are unhappy with where they are, and they hold on to that versus where they're improving, whether it's lab work improving, their diet improving, their sleep improving, their digestion improving, their strength improving. They don't pay attention to those kind of things, but I do. And I'm constantly having to remind them, all of them, of those things. And, because we get so stuck on the numbers. Like, if we're not this number, or if the scale is going up, like that's, or if our clothes aren't fitting, that's the end of the world. And it's not necessarily the end of the world. We're not making progress, when we really are, because if we're building muscle, of course our clothes aren't going to fit the same. Of course they're going to be snug. Clothes aren't meant to fit athletic people. They're meant to fit straight people.
Yeah.
So of course they're not going to fit. Of course you're probably going to have to go up in a size, and you need to just embrace that and enjoy it and take it as a positive, instead of what we are conditioned to believe. Like, if we have to go up in size, like it's a bad thing. And it's not. Like, that's probably one of the best things about my journey, is I got to the biggest size I'd ever gotten to. Granted, I had more body fat on me than I wanted, and I didn't feel my best, but I knew I was working on being my best, and just getting through that. You just got to do it.
Exactly.
You got to stick it out, and you got to do it. Otherwise you're never going to see it, and you're going to just be on this yo-yo hamster wheel where you are constantly stuck where you are.
Absolutely. It's that commitment to having things maybe feel a little bit worse before they get better. And it's hard to trust that, because we feel like it should always be progressing. And like you said, many of us are conditioned that, like, if you're gaining, that's not good, or you're not supposed to be getting bigger as a woman. You're supposed to stay small, like all these things. But I think there's a lot of power when you break through that type of conditioning, not even just for your own like size goals, but also, like you said, for like the confidence and the belief in what you're doing, and for your health. Like, that's major, to be able to overcome a level of conditioning that tells you you can't do that, so that you can actually be better as a person, and for yourself, and as an athlete, and healthier. And it's like because, yes, you gained more body fat than you would have liked, but now look where you are. It's like you had to go through that to come out the other side.
Now the body fat can come off.
Exactly.
It couldn't before.
Yeah, that's true. It's like you had to go through it. And I know, like, some of the best wins that I've had is like, I got up to a size that I didn't want to be at, but it was in a very difficult time in my life, and nothing caused that other than this trauma and the stress. But I was showing up for myself at a time when I didn't want to. And it's like, who cares what my body looks like? Nothing else matters. If I can show up after something incredibly challenging in my life, like, that's worth celebrating. And sometimes we have to just look past like the clothing tag, or the, like you said, the weight scale, the measurements. It's like, are you showing up every day? Yes. Then guess what? When it's time for you to drop the body fat, or time for you to be in a deficit, or time for you to go into that next prep, like, you carry those habits, and you'll be just fine generally.
Yeah, exactly. And that also, taking that time to do that, helps you instill the healthier habits and the lifestyle. It becomes you. It helps you take the time to do that, so that when it is time for that shift, it's just an easy shift. Like, you're not having to make these 180s and things that aren't going to be sustainable.
So there's a lot of competitors who, of course, want to go pro. And there's measures that sometimes I think we have to go through to push ourselves to get there. And it doesn't always feel comfortable, of course, or sustainable. And I want to hear from a coach's perspective, because you're a coach and an athlete, so it's great. What have you learned from coaching people as well as in your own journey about getting to that pro level, and what's maybe a good limit to push and where's maybe too far, and how do you define that as a coach and as an athlete?
As a coach, I base it off of my athletes and their biofeedback and how they're feeling. Like most of them feel like they can push, you know, that's just how they are. Like they feel like they can push, and, you know, they're going to push as hard as they can. So as a coach, it's my job to recognize that and tell them like, okay, I'm not comfortable pushing you any farther from, you know, at this point. Like we're running out of options, you know, we're not making any progress, or it's not quite as good a progress as we should be seeing. Like it's really slow or, you know, non-existent with what we're doing. Like we should be seeing changes at this point. So, you know, it's always a tough conversation, you know, when that starts to happen. But if I'm seeing those little red flags and they're doing everything right, you know, I'm always going to tell them like, we need to hit pause. You know, we need, if it's just a couple weeks, cool. That might be all that they need, you know, where they're prioritizing their sleep, they're, you know, controlling their stress response and, you know, hitting their numbers and cleaning up things a little bit if that's what needs to be done. That might be a 2-week break. It might be a 6-month break. You know, so it really just depends on, you know, what's going on. And, you know, as athletes, including myself, like we're going to push until we are either told no more or something starts, you know, breaking down. You know, at least for me anyways, you know. So just learning that, because like I was telling you earlier, just knowing how long I can push and how hard I can push just from past preps, and, you know, stopping before that even becomes a thing. Like that's why this has been such an easy transition. You know, I would say I'd say it really started like after my when I competed in wellness, and then we decided to go into building phase, like transitioning from that. I went from like 1,200 calories and 90 minutes of cardio to 1,800 calories in just a matter of weeks, like
That's
weeks
awesome.
after that, you know.
That's
And
amazing.
same thing with this one, you know, going from 1,200 calories to, you know, 1,700 and a 500 calorie flexible, you know, throughout the week. Like that's within weeks. You know,
Yes.
take me months to do in the past without, you know, gaining a lot of body fat. And it's it's just mind blowing when you take care of yourself and, you know, you do it right and not push those limits so hard, you know, and even though it's taking every being of you to pull back, you know,
Mm.
just knowing my body and knowing that that's what I need to do, it's just going to make my next prep that much easier and that much better, you know. So I do my best to help my athletes see that, you know, when we are at a point where we just shouldn't push anymore.
Yeah, your personal testimony really speaks to that. And being in this game for as long as you have, you're able to showcase not just your personal stories, but the actual evidence you have and what you've been able to do. And when you got up there this year, you found out you won your pro card, like what was that like for you? Like what was that experience for you after all that time?
Oh man, it was like I remember standing up there and just waiting, because I've been in a position where I've gotten second at a national show where you're just waiting. So just waiting for my name not to be called.
Yeah.
Like, it was just this build up, and I'm like standing there like, oh my God, they're about to announce me as the pro of the class. Like it was just, I don't even know if I can put it into words, because it was so many emotions at once. Um, just all hitting me, you know. And I remember just walking and just staring at Jordan because she had the medal, and I'm just like sitting there just giggling like uncontrollably, like, oh my God, I fucking did it.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't expecting that. I went into it feeling really good, and that's all I can do, and giving my best effort, and that's all I can control, and everything else was out of my hands, but I was like, I freaking did it.
Yeah, that's so cool. Like such a full circle moment. And earlier you said you're taking the time to reverse a bit, and you just said you're building up those calories, and then you also said you're probably going to start prepping for the beginning of the year or at the beginning of the year.
I don't know. We'll see what Jamie thinks, but I even though like Sandy, the feedback I got from her after nationals was just a little bit more density and fullness in my glutes. So really, I want to see that increase. I want to see my glute measurement increase, but feel the density within it, as I'm, going through this. So just depending on, how I'm looking and how I'm feeling will kind of determine how soon we start prepping. But I would imagine it would probably be about the same time as this last year for like a spring summer show, because my daughter, she'll be starting school. So if I can compete when she's not in school, that would be ideal.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. So what are your goals as a pro?
Sorry, my dad called me.
Don't worry.
It's probably my daughter wanting to FaceTime.
Aw.
So my goals as a pro, I would say going into that first show, placing top 10 would be like ideal. But I want to go in, I want to place better than that ideally. But that would be the first step. Let's just get there and see how I measure up next to, other pro athletes, and keep things in perspective and kind of decide to go from there. I'm very much like get feedback and execute that versus just getting on stage and doing a bunch of shows. Like I want to take what they're telling me to do and make those improvements and then keep going.
Absolutely. I love that. It's such a motivating thing as an athlete too, to be told like this is what you need to work on, go work on it. And that's the fun of bodybuilding. Like, yeah, obviously getting on stage is fun. It's shorter than the time we spend building. So I just think it's awesome that that's your focus, is to continue to improve. So I would love to know now your best advice. So best advice for someone who's never competed before but would like to, and then your best advice for someone on their road to pro.
Okay, so for someone who's never competed, my best advice would be, number one, find a coach that understands your goals. Number one, your goals and your values, and, don't rush into it. Don't rush into getting on stage. Like make sure you have your foundation set up, and that's going to be your base of everything that you do going into the whole process. If you're not checking all your boxes, you're not probably ready to do it. So just making sure you're building that foundation and that you have all those boxes checked, so that when you do start prep, it's an easy, seamless transition. For somebody who's going pro, ooh, that's a good one. same thing. If you're going for nationals and you want to turn pro, I would say don't waste your time if you're not ready. Other than, taking an experience and taking that in, don't return until you are going to be competitive, because it's an investment. It's expensive, especially if you're traveling from the West Coast to the East Coast. That's a journey, and it's a huge investment. And I mean, unless you have the funds to do it, which most of us don't, it's be ready, be ready to make an impact, be ready to make an impression, be ready to be seen, and give your best and have fun. Most of all, have fun, because if you're not enjoying what you're doing, there's no point in doing it.
Absolutely love that. That is awesome. So how can people connect with you, work with you, and follow your journey?
Yeah. So my Instagram is _Angela Rutherford _. I believe my YouTube channel is that as well. And then, if they're wanting to work with me or have a consultation, they can fill out an application on fitbodyfusion.com and then just select if they're interested in competing or interested in the transformation lifestyle of things, they would just select one of those and then request me as their coach.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to make sure that all those links are in the show notes page. You guys, that's always on celestial.fit/podcast. If you're listening right away, it'll be at the top of the page. If you're listening in the future, scroll down to the category section. It's alphabetized. So Angela's going to be right up there at the top, and you can click her name, and then you'll see not just the links, but also a summary of the episode. You're going to see a bulleted list of all the topics we covered, as well as the episode timestamp. So if you are watching this on YouTube, you should be able to go back and click to different parts. If you wanted to share this with a teammate or a friend, you can tell them exactly what to expect when they listen to it. And of course, we appreciate when you guys tag us that you're tuning in or share it on your stories. That means a lot. And if you feel inspired to rate or review, it goes a long way on iTunes as well. So thank you all for tuning in. And Angela, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. And to everyone listening, hope you have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.